Hello, Steve White, Steve Arts 89. Well, I've been watching the Amityville movies recently for the 50th anniversary of the murders in Amityville in 1974, and I'm starting to get done with the films, and I'm sort of looking at the case itself. And I must admit, I haven't gone much further than the Hollywood story that we saw in Jay Anson's The Amityville Horror and Murder in Amityville by Hans Holzer, which the first two films were based on. But I have started to look. Sort of starts off with the special features and documentaries and featurettes on the discs, which mostly relate to how the film relates to the story, but starts off with the two-disc set that has Get Out, the interviews with James Brolin and Margot Kidder, which talk about sort of the adaptation of the film, and they sort of repeated that with the Gold Edition, same content basically on the second disc. Then when we got the box set, we got Amityville Confidential, which was very exciting. It had a featurette about the new Amityville film and how that was sort of relating to the story. But it had two History Channel documentaries that I'd heard of that were released, I think, in 2001 around Halloween, the 25th anniversary. And it was Amityville The Haunting and Amityville Horror or Hoax. And the first one is all about the Amityville haunting, and the second one is about the rumour of the hoax and the sort of myth of the hoax and all that, and going into all that. Now, later, after the remake was released, we got Supernatural Homicide and The Source of Evil, The Making of feature, which has sort of still retells the Amityville murders and the case and some of the interesting things around that and how the paranormal may have been involved, but also sort of talks in relation to making the new film. So it still delves into it a bit. And then when we got the Blu-ray, we got the same content, except we got we didn't get the featurettes from the new movie, but we did get My Amityville Horror, which is the story of Christopher Lutz, who was one of the children of the Lutzes, who was in the house, and he does confirm all the paranormal things happened, but he blames his father, he blames George Lutz for it, basically saying he was looking into the paranormal and Satanism, and he sort of drew it to the family and caused it, so he blames him for it, but he does acknowledge it all happens. They have Laura Didio, who was involved in the original Seance and investigation back in the day. They have Lorraine Warren. It's a very interesting documentary. And when we get to the steelbook for the film, we get a few more featurettes and interviews, but it's mostly with cast. There's no, or production team, there's really no new insight into the actual case. Then we get to this release I found, which is the Amityville Collection from the History Channel. It has Horror in Amityville, which is an interesting documentary. It's basically about how the town reacted to the murders and the Hollywood films. And it's a bit dismissive of George Lutz's story, and has some townies sort of just talking about the case like they have any knowledge, just because they live in the town, they think they have a right to an opinion, basically. Aside from that, it's well done. They do a good job of documenting how the town did react to it and how it unfolded, the actual murders and everything. Now, the second documentary on here is a real stretch. It's an episode of Mystery Quest where they clearly were just desperate for an Amityville episode to have in that season, because they just are ghost hunting a house and they're saying it's just like the Amityville case. And there's about 3 moments where they talk for about a minute about the Amityville case and draw some vague, similarities to what they're looking at, and that's it. That's all it has. So that's really, they're really desperately trying to use the name there. But the other documentary on here, Amityville: The Last Testament, because there's 3 documentaries on here, is very interesting. It involves a woman called Jackie Barrett, and she's a psychic. She portrays herself to be working with the police department. She says she's solved over 300 cases. She comes across as a stereotypical medium, and she's, a little goth, and she just stares into the camera, and she's got these big blue eyes, and she just seems like she's playing up that stereotype, or she's genuinely got some issues. Now, there's 2 elements to this story that I have, this documentary, this video, that I have issues with. One, they go through Ronald's story, and Supernatural Homicide actually went through one of the versions as well, because one of the stories he told was that it was the mob that did it, and that would mean that he would have had to have been in the house for big stretches of time for all the dead bodies and not know they were there because they were killed by someone else when he wasn't there. So that doesn't really work. Now, the case, the sort of argument that he went with was that he was possessed and that he was dissociating and didn't know what he was doing. That was undermined by people's inability to believe in the supernatural and paranormal, and I personally don't really believe he was possessed. I believe he could have been paranoid and afraid based on the paranormal experiences he had in the house that might have made him act out of the ordinary, and also being on drugs, he may have believed he was possessed or something like that, and that's why I believe they used that as a defense, because if you're going to make up a defense, you're not going to make up something as unbelievable as that. So I believe he believed that happened to him. But they go into all that, and part of the defense against that was that argument against that was that he got rid of the gun, he got rid of his clothes, he sort of knew what he was doing. He would have had to have been dissociating after doing the murders and to not know about it later and claim he didn't know what happened and so forth. So they sort of dismissed that. But in this documentary, they go through the third sort of version of the story I've heard, which is that Dawn was involved in the killings. And he suggests that the two of them fought with the father, and both him and Dawn thought they were threatened, and they thought the only way they could be safe was to kill their father. So they wait for him to go to sleep, they go up, and he doesn't establish whether they both had guns, because Rick Osana, who was someone who set up the Amityville murders or the DeFeo murders, a website, and wrote a book about it back in the day, he says that Dawn had gunpowder on her clothes, which I've never heard any official statement that that's the case, but he says that's the case. And, so the story is that they went up to the room and he was about to shoot his dad. His dad woke up, he shot his dad, and I think he implied he had to shoot him twice, but he was saying, like, there was a flash, like, he implies that somehow Dawn was shooting too, so did she have a gun as well? It's not clear. He says that Dawn shot the mother, and he freaked out because they were only supposed to kill the father. He didn't know why she did that. She seemed to be enjoying it, which just characterises her as a monster, and it's very self-serving the way he tells the story, and the dialogue that he tells, he would never have spoken like that. It's not how people would have spoken, or how he would have spoken about what was happening. He apparently went out for some reason, then he came back, this is around after 3, and when he came back he found that all the children were dead. They'd been killed as well, and there was some guy in the house that knew Dawn. He ran off, and then he mentioned his name, but it's bleeped out. Then he confronts Dawn, she attacks him with a gun, he knocks her down, pushes her face down and shoots her in the back of the head, and basically kills her too. So he killed his father and Dawn killed the mother and the other kids. So for some reason he wants to spread the blame around, but he's still acknowledging he killed 2 members of his family and still implying that he was possessed as well. So he's still got the 2 stories going, and it's just, and he's implying a third person who, in another video I also saw, there was a woman who he was in a relationship with, who I think he married when he was in jail, who said that they tried to create a brother of hers to use to hide the identity of this other guy. So it's just getting really convoluted at this point. But what bothered me about this documentary was there are points where they do reenactments of little things, and at first I thought they just had the camera on her all the time and they captured stuff, and it's like, oh no, this is a recreation of something that happened months ago before she spoke to Ronald, blah, blah, blah. And like, they really should be saying this is a recreation. And then towards the end, she claims that she can solve the case because she can see and relive Donnie's memories, or Ronnie's memories. So she does that, and they show her walking around a house, and it's implied that it's the house, and that she's in the main bedroom and the kids' bedrooms, and she's touching the beds and lying on the beds and reliving his experience of the murders and being able to say what happened. But there's no way they'd be in the real house, because if they got into the real house, they would have made a big deal about it, and they'd be saying, we're doing a seance or a reading or something, or a cleansing or something, or an exorcism, but there's no mention. They just show her walking around this house, and it implies that this is actually happening, and like, this is a reenactment. They must be in someone else's house. There's no way the people who owned the house at that time, who sold later, would have let them do this. So there are these, it feels very disingenuous. There are these reenactments that aren't clearly reenactments in the documentary, and so there's some issues there. And the other idea is that somehow he and what's her name again, Jackie, feel that she's the only one that can cleanse him of this spirit, because he's claiming he's still possessed. And there's a moment where they show him being interviewed and talking about it. They show her being interviewed and talking to him on the phone. They don't show them meeting in jail, because they met one time, but they don't show that. But one time when she's talking to him, he actually starts talking like he's possessed, and it's supposed to be the voice of the spirit that's talking, and it's a bit much. And for some reason they both think she's the only one that can solve the problem and cure him and exorcise the demons and everything, and it's all very self-aggrandizing for her. And she goes to the gravesite and apparently exercises the gravesite because the spirits are there and they're still angry. And then apparently that solves it. And he says, I haven't had any problems since and all that. And he was sick and about to die soon. He did die not long after that. But it ends implying that whatever problems that she was having being connected to the case that she was having with the paranormal and he was still having were all gone and over. And it's hard to take serious. And I question its validity, but it's interesting. But it was done through the History Channel, I think, and it's on one of their releases, and it's got production value and everything. But I don't know. But I'm about to go down a bunch of rabbit holes, a whole warren of rabbit holes, because there's a bunch of documentaries, some well made, from people who seem to be experts or have some experience or have interviewed people involved in the case, and some that are just random podcasts and people reading from books and stuff. I'm about to explore all this. It's midday. And I've got 2 more Amityville films to watch, the Amityville Murders and the remake, which I'm watching last because it's like the least credible out of all of them. And in the meantime, I've got the whole day, and I'm just going to try and go through all the main documentaries. Some I've put aside and been meaning to watch but just didn't have the time, like Shattered Dreams, I think it is, or Shattered Hopes, or there's a couple that are really long and involved. I'm going to finally watch them. And I'll probably come back and do another video about the whole Amityville myth and legacy. And part of me likes that there are elements that have never been explained, haven't been resolved, and probably never will. And it's always going to be a mystery. It's always going to be something you can look into, regardless of how far people have gone with conspiracy theories and, you know, gone over the top of that. There's still enough legitimate mystery there that this is always going to be interesting. It's always going to interest the public. It's never going to go away. I don't think it's ever going to die. The mythology and the legend and the legacy of Amityville is just going to keep growing. I think it's always going to be there. So I'm kind of happy about that. And also because some of these conspiracy theories and that move further away from the actual tragedy of the real life murders and that, and it's all about the paranormal and the ghosts and the conspiracy theories and stuff like that. So I'm going to delve into that and talk about it later. So I'm going to go. Feel free to share, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think of the films and the documentaries and the mythology and the conspiracy theories and the legacy and all the elements that the Amityville name brings up. And let me know what you think.